Jayhawk Basketball. I'm David Lawrence with Sean Kellerman. We're coming live from Kansas Nation Studio, and Elijah Schmidt is in here with us. The winning streak has ceased, and it was fun while it lasted. I think a lot of people, so-called experts out there, predicted that Iowa State would get Kansas today. They had the motives of revenge, coming off a really bad loss in Fort Worth, and Kansas coming off one of their biggest wins in recent history, and it all came together. Jayhawks lose 74-56.
Yeah, disappointing day. It was Iowa State's day, as the guys talked about at the end of the game broadcast, and probably the beginning of the game, which you felt like was trending in Kansas' direction, was more so a bad omen for the Jayhawks, because while KU was up 6-2 early, and it wasn't that early, Iowa State hadn't scored. They missed 9 of their first 10 shots. They were missing shots that they generally make, and an Iowa State team that entered this one cold shooting from beyond the arc, just 25% their previous 2 games. Struggled in the first half from 3, and then they really got it going in the second half as they shot 8 of 14 from 3 in the second half. But first half turnovers really bit Kansas DL. They had 10 turnovers, and despite shooting better than Iowa State was getting a lot more shots because of a lot more extra possessions, extra opportunities, that sort of thing. And Kansas just didn't get enough from some individuals that we'll get into as well. Just 56 points, not going to win you very many games. And now Kansas going to have to regroup. Been pretty hot, right? We've been in a tree, and things have been going well for us, and it just didn't happen today. Not surprising that a really good Iowa State team on a good day was able to come out with a win.
Jayhawks fall 2 games back of first place, and that's Arizona, and they'll have another crack at Arizona. Of course, that's at Arizona, but these teams playing each other, I think one thing's for certain, if you're going to be a part of it, you need to beat the teams you're supposed to beat, and maybe that's where Kansas fell off the cart early on in the season.
Could be at UCF, at West Virginia for sure, but, with how good the top of the league is, I don't know. I mean, every game it seems like is so difficult. Strange the fact that Iowa State hasn't faced a ranked opponent since December 6th. Meanwhile, Kansas heading into this game the last 2 weeks has faced 4 top 15 teams. And, of course, the time Kansas beat Iowa State, KU had fallen out of the rankings. So Iowa State, they've got some tough games ahead with Texas Tech, BYU, Houston, of course, on Monday. And they've got Arizona as well. So a tough road to hoe for them for sure. But, from a Kansas point of view, at this point, if you're talking Big 12 regular season title, which we want to do while it's still a possibility, you're going to have to find a way to either run the table, maybe 5-1, we'll get it done down the stretch. But realistically, Houston, they're not going to lose more than 2 more games, in my opinion. And Arizona's not going to lose more than 2 more games, in my opinion, despite the fact that those teams have hard games also. So that would get those 2 teams both at 10-1 to 3 losses, which is the number of losses Kansas, Iowa State, and Texas Tech have right now. We'll certainly see a tough one on Wednesday against Oklahoma State, one that I've had circled for a while because it's kind of one of those sneaky ones in the middle of this stretch of facing so many top 15 teams who are national contenders. Oklahoma State can score, and we'll have more on them later, but it wasn't in the cards for Kansas. I thought they competed and matched the intensity of Iowa State the first 8 to 12 minutes of this game, but then it was Iowa State who was not only hitting shots, but they had kind of flipped the script from the intensity that Kansas had in Fog Allen about a month ago.
Yeah, Iowa State picked Kansas up about 35 feet from the rim.
They made it tough.
And they made it very, very difficult, and perhaps where Kansas lost the game, Iowa State has 2 points in the first 7 minutes and 30 seconds in this game. Can you believe it? A team that good, top 10 in the nation offensively, and they scored just 2 points. Part of that was because of the Jayhawk defense. Part of it, Iowa State just missing shots. But Kansas is up a total of 6-2 when Iowa State scores just 2 in 7:30.
Yeah, that goes back to what we were saying, where you look at the scoreboard, you're happy that you're winning, but you're also wishing it was a little bit larger of a margin because those shots that we know Iowa State can make weren't falling. And Iowa State, they don't just beat teams this season. They completely clobber them with a few exceptions. Yeah, they had a loss to Cincinnati and a loss to TCU. Similar, I'd say, to West Virginia, UCF. But we'll have to see how they do moving forward. But yeah, eventually the shots were going to fall for an Iowa State team that scored 132 points at one point earlier this year against Alcorn State. They hit 22 of 33s in that game. Different opponent, no doubt, but the Cyclones are really talented. They're a Final Four contender. Maybe the biggest takeaway for Kansas in this one is that we've been riding high for a while, and here's a little slice of humble pie. We didn't just barely lose. It wasn't just one or two things down the stretch that caused us to lose and this winning streak to dissipate. It was a lot of things that we got to do better, and it starts with some individuals, I think. Bill Self saying post-game that, we hadn't practiced together as a full unit a lot recently. That needs to happen soon, and the guys just need to be better individually. I did like what I saw down the stretch from Cole Rosario, Jaden Dawson, Elmarco Jackson in particular. They got an opportunity to go get some run, and they played well, and they had a big part in Kansas having that little 18-6 run that cut the 24-point deficit in half, but obviously not enough, and got to get those star players, top scorers for Kansas playing better.
You can be a part of this show by texting in 234-25-HAWKS. Tell us who you are, where you're from. We'd love to hear from you, get your thoughts on this game and looking ahead in the future. How many losses do you think will win the conference? That's being discussed a lot right now, and it's easy to say with the way Houston and Arizona is playing, it could be as few as 3.
Man, I'd say it could be as few as 2. I mean, Houston, they've got 7 games left. 4 of them, I think, are going to be Cougar victories without question. Of course, today, K-State, that's not going to be any problem for Houston to come up with a victory there. But they've got a 3-game stretch where they do have to go to Kansas. They do have to go to Iowa State. They have Arizona at home. But do you really expect Houston to lose all 3 of those? Because if they lose both, then there's their second and third losses. They ain't losing those other games because they tend to have success home or on the road. So I think with Kansas right now in terms of the Big 12 conference race, not a lot of margin for error. And we know how good Arizona is as well. But just have to wait and see. That's why they play the game. We have unexpected final scores across the league often. And we'll see. Kansas, though, the bottom line is they're still in a good spot. We want to be playing our best ball in March. Today was a stinker. We knew one of these was going to happen. Iowa State was good. They were hungry, all the reasons that you gave when you opened the show that were maybe not trending toward the Jayhawks. I get it. That makes sense. And it wasn't a fun day, but got to go to Stillwater and get a win. That should be the focus.
The Jayhawk Radio Network is sponsored by Kansas Insurance. We have Kansans covered. Coming up next in this show, we're going to hear from some people who text in at 234-25-HAWKS. We've got also some sound from Melvin Council, Elmarco Jackson at the podium in postgame, and more sound from our head coach, Bill Self. All that ahead on the Kansas Insurance Jayhawks Sports Network from Learfield. Talking Raleigh Jayhawk fans, from the latest KU basketball gear to exclusive NIL styles supporting your KU athletes. Visit Raleigh House in store and online today.
All right, we are live at the Kansas Nation studio. Make sure you check out Kansas Postgame, the Jayhawk Locker Room Show, now on kansasnation.com if you want to see the video feed. Also, like and follow Kansas Nation across all your social platforms with daily and weekly podcasts, news conferences, and interviews. Jayhawk fans, it's kansasnation.com here at the studio. Wasn't the most fun game we've ever watched. 74-56, Iowa State over Kansas, as KU goes 1-1 in this week where they had two top 10 teams. They get another one of these weeks coming up in a couple weeks as they battle Houston at home on Big Monday, February 23rd, and then a road game at who is now number 1, Arizona. Text line is 23425. Hawks got a text coming in from Batman. He says, we can't play huge games without DP contributing. We have to find a way to reach our lofty plateau. Rock Chalk. Yeah, we alluded to that last segment, but Kansas not getting enough from Peterson or Trey White. We understand that White dealing with the dental surgery that he had with the issue with the root canal. He had just 2 points on 0 of 3 from the field, 0 of 3 from 3. He's cooled off this past 2 or 3 weeks from the perimeter. KU's going to need his scoring, a guy who averages upwards of 14 a game. And then Peterson, when he's played, he averages more than 20 a game. Kansas needs more from him, 10 points, no assists, no rebounds. So would love to see more counting stats from DP, and credit Iowa State's defense on both those guys. As we talked about, they did a really good job pushing KU's offense out.
It was 2 runs by Iowa State, a 20-2 Cyclone run in the first half. And this is while Iowa State was not making threes in the first half. They're 3 of 16, and then a 12-0 early second half run, which was 3-pointers. And that, in essence, was the difference in the game. Yeah,
Momcilovic hit a couple. Lipsy hit a couple. Lipsy shoots just 27% from 3, but didn't bother him on that front. Those 3 balls, they add up. Iowa State, kind of law of averages, hit KU as they had struggled for 2.5 games from the perimeter before getting hot in the second half. Abel in Iowa texts in, tough day overall. Love the grit and energy from the Birds in the second half, and the fact that Marco and everybody was attacking the bucket regardless of score. Hilton is always a tough place to play. Hashtag Rock Chalk.
Scott in Trimble texts in, I knew it was going to be tough when DP got shoved to the ground from behind early and no call. ISU with the old West Virginia foul early and often dare the refs to call it in their playbook. They take the ridiculous Cyclone 3-point shooting to start the second half, and KU could have still won if they couldn't have done that. Appreciate the text at 23425 Hawks.
Todd in Dallas says that he's a believer in Hilton Magic now. He said he used to think it was a bunch of disgruntled Iowa State fans who booed a lot, which they continue to do. I would not like to be an official there, no matter what. If there's a call that doesn't go Iowa State's way, I mean, it's reminiscent of the octagon of doom, as they call it, constant booing. Todd says, given the number of shots Iowa State made in the second half that defied both physics and logic, I've changed my mind on Hilton Magic not being real. Yeah, Momcilovic's shot falling out of bounds, definitely top of that list. On to Gallagher-Iba on Wednesday. Rock Chalk from Todd.
Got a text from Tom in Salina, basically wants to know about Darren Peterson not playing the last 7 minutes. Is it because of injury? Is it because Bill Self liked another lineup? And I think Bill alluded to it in postgame, is he was kind of playing the guys that were helping him go for a run, and he kind of liked that lineup with El Marco out there.
Yeah, it worked better than the other lineup tonight. Generally, Kansas' best team is going to involve not only Peterson but Trey White out there. We've seen those guys grind. Those guys score a lot of baskets, but tonight was not one of those nights, and need to bounce back on Wednesday, because after that, you could set up another monster matchup. It's just crazy how this schedule has turned out. Difficult for a lot of people, but surely having to face Arizona twice and Iowa State twice is as difficult as it gets in Big 12 play. Blake and Rolanda in Santa Barbara, that was not any fun. We had a hard time making passes, let alone shots. Rosario scored his first points in the Big 12. Hopefully many, many more to come. Let's start a 6-game winning streak and win the conference. Rock Chalk.
Let's go. That's all it takes. Matt and Leah in Top City. Tough loss, but not surprised after their crowd got into it and they couldn't miss. our boys will bounce back on Wednesday, rock chalk. And it will be a tough game on Wednesday, but certainly one that they can win. Oklahoma State was one of the top 2 surprise teams in the Big 12, suffered a couple of losses in recent times, and lost a heartbreaker today after they forced overtime with TCU.
Well, it's got to make you feel good in a day that Kansas fans won't exactly look back on fondly. This is more so the exception than the rule. The rule, in my opinion, David, is the past month of basketball that we've seen. You saw some good things from Flory Bidunga. We've seen that this past month. But Melvin Council did some things that we weren't used to. He ends up with 4 turnovers. Bryson Tiller didn't play his best game, only got up 2 shots. He had 4 turnovers. And then I've talked about Peterson and White. We know what those guys can accomplish. Today was the exception. The opponent had a big reason for why that was the case. And you know what, David? Maybe you were right. Maybe we'll look back on the Big 12 standings and say losing to UCF and West Virginia, who aren't bottom dwellers like Kansas State by any stretch. But will Houston and Arizona lose to the middling teams like that, like Iowa State and Kansas did? Iowa State losing to TCU and Cincinnati, kind of similar in terms of the standings to Kansas early season losses. Who knows? But there's a chance that those teams do lose again. And certainly Kansas has got the talent. And as Haney alluded to at the end of the game broadcast, we want to win the regular season conference title. But what's most important to us, a deep March run, a Final Four, a chance to have a chance, if you will. And there's no doubt with all the victories Kansas has had these past couple weeks that they're going to be right there. They have proven that they can beat the best teams in the country. And hopefully this is just a blip on the radar.
Breaking down the first half as Iowa State picked up Kansas just past half court and made it very difficult, forced numerous turnovers, but Iowa State at their end could not knock down shots as they scored just the 2 points in the first 7 minutes plus. But then when Iowa State starts making shots, they go on a 9-0 run. But then how about Darren Peterson and then 3 Melvin Council threes. And Kansas goes on an 11-2 run of their own. But then Iowa State follows with a big, monstrous 20-2 run to put separation in that first half, leading 37-27.
That was the run that probably did Kansas away, right? You know that you're always going to have a chance in the second half, but you have that big run after Kansas got the 4-point lead from a Flory Bidunga alley-oop from Melvin Council. Beginning of the second half, a 12-0 Iowa State run after 2 Trey White free throws, and it was going to be a really, really tough task for Kansas as they got down 49-29. 20 points, you can come from behind 20 against a lot of teams. This Iowa State team is not one of those teams realistically. So Kansas was not able to do it. But again, good things down the stretch from some guys that don't get to play very many minutes generally.
LMH Health is your partner for lifelong health. Learn more at lmh.org. We are at Kansas Nation Studio, a great setup downtown. You do daily shows right here, and you must love the environment.
Oh, it's fantastic. Got TVs, a private event space as well. So we got pool table, golden tee, all sorts of great options. But yeah, fantastic TVs. We do have a show, Rock Chalk Sports, 4 to 6 daily here at Kansas Nation. KansasNation.com is the place to be for all your KU coverage and other podcasts as well. Haney and the Hawks, Between Two Fountains. You'll hear from Brian Haney. You'll hear from Greg Gurley, Nate Bucati as well on the Jayhawkers. So check it out, KansasNation.com.
Coming up next, it'll be Melvin Council and Marco Jackson from the podium. We'll hear what they have to say after the 74-56 loss in Ames, Iowa. This is the Kansas Insurance Jayhawks Sports Network from Learfield. on that big 20-2 run to take the 10-point lead in at halftime, then Iowa State, they started making their shots, the perimeter shots, and went on an early 12-0 run to take a 20-point lead. And Kansas got within 12 late, but then Iowa State closes on a 6-0 run. Jayhawks made just one of their last 9 field goals. Crimson and Blue Tuesdays are back at the KU Bookstore. Score 20% off on apparel and gifts each Tuesday at KU Bookstore locations or kubookstore.com. Rock chalk.
We're going to hear from the podium, a couple of Jayhawks here very shortly. First, we want to tell you about Kubota. Powerful performance in the field from Kubota and performance-matched implements for any task from Land Pride. Visit gokubota.com for the Kubota and Land Pride dealer near you. Got a text on our text line, which is 234-25-HAWKS. From the 201 area code, do you think DP was experiencing a lack of game playing? Seemed to be slow getting into any kind of flow, at least to me. That coming from the 201. Peterson plays 24 minutes in this one. Honestly, I'll let you give your take on this, David. 24 minutes, I felt like Iowa State did a great job, as we've talked about, pushing Peterson out further on the perimeter. But Kansas didn't really have an answer, whether it was Peterson or anybody else offensively.
Yeah, I would kind of put it in just okay.
Yeah.
And that's kind of similar to what all of his teammates were, and that's not enough to win in Ames, Iowa, especially you're taking on a red-hot number 5 Iowa State team that is looking for revenge for that early beatdown that we gave them when they were undefeated, ranked number 2, and then Iowa State lost a heartbreaker to TCU just on Tuesday. So they had their backs against the wall, and they came out and played really hard defensively, but didn't make shots. And then they did make shots, and Kansas just couldn't keep up with the pace.
Kansas with 4 games remaining on the schedule. Well, rather 6 games remaining. They've got 3 at home and 3 on the road. And how that looks like coming up is you're at Oklahoma State. Then you've got Cincinnati at home, Houston at home, at Arizona. Those 4 games close out the month of February. And then you've got 2 teams toward the bottom of the conference in the month of March. So a good March schedule, if you will, at Arizona State, which it's on the road, certainly not going to be a layup. And then you have K-State, the worst team in the conference, at home. So we'll have to wait and see. But at this point, you feel good. You certainly would have taken a 4-1 record in this 5-game stretch that Kansas has had, and that's what they ended up as, knowing that a lot of the teams you're facing are really good, really talented. And for Kansas, it's about beating Oklahoma State, who's always going to be packing a punch in Stillwater. Kansas heads there Wednesday night. Right here locally, we're going to play this Melvin Council and El Marco Jackson postgame. Kansas falls to Iowa State 74-56. Let's go to the podium.
They just took us. It was being. Tip your hats off to those shots, but you know, as a team collectively, we could have done a better job. So it's on us.
Melvin, what made the traps so difficult for you guys to deal with?
It wasn't difficult. It was just that me personally, myself, was just taking an extra dribble instead of getting the ball out my hands and feeding to the open man. That's really it.
Melvin, how did that environment compare to others you've seen this season or even earlier in your college career?
I mean, it was a great environment, you know. I knew their fans were going to come out very large and big, you know. Shout out to them, though. They played their heart.
Marco, how would you describe your approach during that stretch kind of late in the second half where you were scoring a lot and you guys were able to get a little bit closer?
Really just get downhill first and foremost and try and create for my teammates, and then just taking what the defense, offers me. It's pretty, just trying to keep it simple.
Just for both of you guys, I guess you haven't experienced losing in a while. How do you think you'll respond to this one, and what will it take for you guys to turn around the next few days and get over it?
I mean, it was bound to happen. We wasn't really prepared like that, but it's okay that we got more games left, and hopefully we come back and start our winning streak back up again.
And just having to go through like the defense you guys did with the traps, et cetera, do you feel you guys are better prepared for whatever opponent tries to do that next?
Yeah, we definitely about to get after it on Monday, and we can't wait.
What was Coach Self's main message to you guys after this one?
Just that we got to be prepared and we got to practice hard like we never did before.
Anything else? Thanks, fellas.
That's Melvin Council and Elmarco Jackson at the podium postgame. KU falls to Iowa State in Ames. Kansas now 19-6 overall, 9-3 in Big 12 play. Jayhawk fans, don't miss your opportunity to cheer on the football team in London this September at the Union Jack Classic. Get your official travel packages now at jayhawkfantravel.com.
Couple of interesting events that occurred this year concerning Jayhawk Nation. A celebration of life on Thursday for Scooter Ward, who was a legend of KU athletics, who had so much to do with the development academically, but just also as a counseling, someone there for basketball, volleyball. But I would see him at dozens of football practices. I mean, Scooter was someone that will never be replaced, and Greg Gurley did a fantastic job as the MC. Bill Self spoke, Ray Bouchard spoke. It was a tremendous event, and I think the Jayhawks did it upright, honoring the legacy and legend of Scooter Ward.
It's been really cool seeing everything on social media of Jayhawks current and past getting together, saying nice things, posting photos, and obviously the special event emceed by Greg Gurley culminated that. A great day to honor a great man in Scooter Ward.
That is something that happened last night, involved some KU student athletes. Night to Shine. It was put on by Tom and Debbie Slack, honoring special populations in Northeast Kansas. They had their night. And, there was limo rides, horse-drawn carriages. I was able to MC with Sean Kellerman, who did a fantastic job. But shout out to the Kansas dance team that showed up there to honor these people. And how about the Kansas football team? 21 members of the Kansas football team on Friday night, and they showed up to cheer on the special population. It was really cool to witness, and what a great job and a culture that's set up. And Daryl Stuckey is the one that of Kansas football brought him there to be a part of it.
And you know what was awesome about that is they didn't just show up and leave. They showed up and they stayed for every single one of the approximately 100 introductions of these folks from the special population, and then they stayed after the fact. They had really cool things at the River City Church where they had karaoke, they had caricatures, they had dancing, and a lot of those football players not only stayed throughout the introduction, but they were in the kitchen hanging out with all these people who were being honored. So it was a really special night, and I was blessed to be a part of it with UDL, and looking forward to more great events down the line.
All right, Kansas has their winning streak stopped. They lose 74-56, but they're still 19-6, 9-3. Their ranking, I'm guessing, is going to stay about the same, which is number 9. They had the win over number 1. They lost to number 5. Depending on what the people over them do, you have an opinion on that?
Oh, man. I do. We can get into that, but yes, we'll break it down.
All right, we'll hear what Sean Kellerman thinks we're going to be on Monday in the top 25, but we're also going to hear from legendary head coach Bill Self coming up next on the Kansas Insurance Jayhawk Sports Network from Learfield. Floyd Bidunga, 11 points, 13 rebounds, a block, and a steal. Kansas actually, shot well in the first half, but it was holding Iowa State down in shooting in the first half that allowed them to stay with it until that big Iowa State run, and they took that 10-point lead at halftime and then came out and went on that 12-0 early run, making the first 7 shots from deep.
Yeah, they were hot, and Kansas was unable to match their offensive effectiveness. DL, before we went to break, you asked me about the AP poll. Kansas, a week where you face 2 top 5 teams, and you go 1-1. I would be shocked if Kansas falls below 9. Add another loss. Doesn't really matter when it's on the road against a top 5 team. And certainly it matters what other teams have done throughout the week as well. But I would think Kansas is still a top 10 team. Michigan State is right behind Kansas, but they had a bad week. They're going to fall out of the top 10. North Carolina, they also lost at one point this week. They're 11, so they're going to fall further back as well. Illinois, a team that has kind of gone back and forth. They're right now 8th. Interesting that Big 12 still has 4 teams in the top 25. And in terms of bracketology, as we're getting to the point where we can really talk about that, CBS Sports and ESPN both had Kansas on the 3 line before this game. I know that there was some chatter that maybe they could move up to the 2, and I think that's still a possibility, but I would expect Kansas still firmly on the 3 line after this situation where they lost by 18, but still, it was at Iowa State. And an opportunity this upcoming week, David, to win 2 games when other teams don't win 2 games, right? And that's important in terms of resume. Kansas, should you beat Oklahoma State on the road and Cincinnati at home, both big ifs, but then you're looking at 21-6, 11-3 Big 12 record. That's pretty dang good. And I think when talking bracketology, you feel okay about being on the 3 seed line. If you move up to the 2 line, you feel great. Interesting note about the NCAA tournament. A lot of times, Kansas has somewhere close to them in the first 2 rounds that you want to be, right? You want to be somewhere in driving distance. Sometimes that's Omaha, sometimes it's Des Moines, sometimes it's Kansas City. Well, this year, you got 2 of those locations that are close. You got St. Louis and you got Oklahoma City, both roughly 4-hour drives from Lawrence. So that increases the chances of Kansas the first couple rounds getting a chance to hit the road and play close to home. Now, you want to make sure you're on the 3 line at least for that to happen, because once you drop to the 4 or 5 line, they don't really care. They'll send you to the Salt Lake quicker than you can say rock chalk, as Brian Haney would say. But yeah, Kansas still has an opportunity, and they've got a lot of winnable games on their schedule and 2 games that are going to be against top 5 teams that we'll call opportunities, but it should be fun.
It's going to be difficult. I mean, starting on Wednesday, the Jayhawks have to play together, Darren Peterson added to the chemistry of this team. It didn't mesh exactly well in Iowa State. They had a lot to do with that. How much? I guess we'll see on Wednesday to see if it all comes together. And I think Bill Self mentioned about 3 times with Greg Gurley, we need to practice together.
Right.
We need to practice together. So let's see if they can get those good practices together and have that chemistry we're looking for.
As fun as the last month has been, Kansas still hasn't hit their ceiling, right? And a lot of that is on the back of Darren Peterson, right? Because his ceiling is unlike any in college basketball, and hopefully he's able to get there. Practice Trey White as well, hoping for his quick recovery and reintegration, if you will, after his oral surgery that he recently had. I don't have to tell KU fans that Iowa State is good at basketball and has been for a while, but so that you sleep well tonight and don't beat this team up too much. KU basketball fans are smart. They don't need me to tell you this, but this is an Iowa State team that went to Purdue when Purdue was ranked number 1, and Iowa State won by 23. Iowa State has victories over Iowa. They beat UCF by 30. They beat Colorado by 30. They've had a lot of impressive wins, and they're going to definitely be in the conversation.
As good as Iowa State has been traditionally, Kansas has beaten them more times than what most any other team has beat someone else. Jayhawks have number 1 in beating Kansas State, but the 191 wins over Iowa State is a top 10 as far as one team domination of the other. And so much talk about how Hilton Coliseum in Ames, Iowa, one of the most difficult places to play in America, which I think I would agree with that, but Kansas still has a 28-26 advantage in the Hilton.
How about that, right? Little bit different bar, different expectations here at KU. Let's go to the podium post-game and hear part one from the Hall of Fame head basketball coach, Bill Self.
They strung out or trapped us off ball screens, and we didn't handle that well at all. And you know, our ability to move the ball and drive gaps to force help, it was pretty weak the entire first half. Second half, we actually did a better job with it, but they had so much pressure on the ball. Even when guys were open, we didn't even think about passing it because we were just trying to survive. So give them credit. That game today it mirrored the game in Lawrence. You know, it was us and Lawrence doing that. Today it was them doing that, and we didn't handle it very well at all.
Bill, you always talk about how difficult it is to play here. How difficult was it to coach and see your team play in Ames today?
Well, what makes it hard to play here more times than not is Iowa State's got really good players out there on the court. That's what makes it hard. The crowd's great, but you know that adds to it. So I thought the things that you have to do to win away from home, you know, the toughness, the take away the arc, because that was definitely an emphasis. You know, take care of the basketball, no live ball turnovers. If you look at the first half, they beat us on offensive rebound, fan for threes, and scoring off live ball turnovers as much as anything. So, you know, we didn't do near enough to make up for our deficiencies there. And then start the second half, you know, they come out and they make their first 7 threes. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a formula for disaster wherever you're playing away from home. So, and they executed and they played well, but our defense was soft enough to make sure that we let them feel comfortable shooting it.
From your perspective, Coach, has Iowa State changed or grown a whole lot since the first matchup to the second matchup?
Well, they were a lot better today than they were against us the first time. You know, the thing about it is, TJ and I have actually talked about this. Season's long. We caught them when they weren't very good. They had a terrible 7 to 10 days, whatever it was. Worst 7 to 10 days they've had this season. We were the same way. We were coming off having that stretch, and we bowed our neck that game, and they bowed their neck this game, even after coming off the game in Fort Worth. So it's a long season. It's ebbs and flows. It's disappointing that we left out of here not putting game pressure on them, because you can come up here and play great and not win. But certainly we didn't put any game pressure on them that was significant at all. I didn't feel like.
What made you want to keep riding with that lineup with 3 stars? I mean, obviously you're having more success later in the second half, but what made you want to keep riding with that set of 5 guys for as long as you did?
I'm sorry, what 5 guys was it?
Yeah, so it was when Marco, Cole, and Jaden, I think, were all in the game for a long stretch.
Well, Marco was the best player in the game, so you're not going to take him out. And other guys are tired, and you know you got one guy had a little surgery on Wednesday from an infected root canal that they had to cut him open and go do. He had practice this week, and you got another guy that's coming off a sickness. So I don't think that had any bearing whatsoever as far as a lineup. The reason that anybody would think that would have any bearing would strictly be because of stats. You know, those other guys did every bit as good as the guys that were in there beforehand down the stretch.
And that's head coach Bill Self. We'll hear part 2 coming up next. Shout out to Matt Llewellyn, 23rd Street Brewery, for sending over the salads today for our daily sustenance. And I'm going to continue on over to Allen Fieldhouse and call the game with Stephen Davis with the Kansas women. So let's see what they can do against Houston, so we can finish the day with a dub.
4 more for the Kansas women, and I wouldn't mind a 4-0 record if they can find a way. They definitely have the talent. Yeah, we're going to hear more from Bill Self after this.
On the Kansas Insurance Jayhawks Sports Network from Learfield.
Marco Jackson called the best player in the game tonight by Bill Self. 8 points off the bench. Loved his aggressiveness down the stretch when KU was going with that lineup that is not very often used. Iowa State over Kansas at Hilton Coliseum, 74-56. Sean Kellerman back live in the Kansas Nation studio on downtown Mass Street. And you can watch the post-game locker room show on kansasnation.com. Also, we're live everywhere you can find Kansas Nation, Facebook, YouTube, and, of course, kansasnation.com. Appreciate the opportunity to do the post-game locker room show here, and check out the Kansas Nation Podcast Network for the best coverage of all things KU. Let's go back to the podium. Bill Self asked about the numerous threes that Iowa State hit at the beginning of that second half.
I think at one
What
point,
was it? Was it 6 or 7?
their first 6 made shots.
Six.
Were all threes.
Okay, the first 6 made.
You turned around at one point and just kind of like smiled and kind of threw your hands up. Is that one of those moments where you just like feel helpless defensively, or did you feel like?
Well, I think that I didn't feel totally helpless defensively until Momcilovic made the one in the corner over Flory. I mean, that was a big time play. I mean, yeah, I don't know that you do anything other than say, yeah, pat him on the butt and well done, because we actually defended that pretty well.
Bill, Darren, I think, played 24 minutes. Was that just because of the game flow, or was it conditioning, or just a mix of both things?
I think it was just probably game flow and conditioning. I tried to sub him because, guys, he's been sick. So when he needed to come out there at the end, I was thinking, what do we do to give us the best chance to have success on Wednesday? Yeah, that was just me making that decision.
How did you think he did in the time that he did have on the court?
I didn't think he was great, but he hadn't practiced much, So I don't think he was bad. I just don't think anybody was great today. So except for maybe El Marco played well, but I think lack of court time had a lot to do with that, and they did a good job defending him too.
How do you think guys will respond to the first loss in a while?
In this league, guys, it's a good chance it's going to happen again. It's a good chance Iowa State will lose again. It's a good chance Arizona will lose again. This league is good, and especially away from home. Yeah. So how do you think we'll react to God? I hope we react like men, because in February when you play conference games and you play away from home, there's a great chance even the best teams, leave unhappy. So we just can't let one become two.
Coach, you mentioned the offensive rebounds. I think it was 8-1 at half, and I feel like after you held them to 2 points over 7 minutes, getting an offensive rebound really fueled getting their offense going. Just how critical was that in terms of them getting going?
I thought they were tougher than us on the glass, but I would be curious to see how many shots did they score threes on after getting an offensive rebound. It's one thing. It's demoralizing if you guard and your first shot defense is pretty good, which I thought ours was in the first half, and then they get an offensive rebound, you fan for three, and I think that happened at least 2 or 3 times. I could be wrong, and that was a whole game plan. They do a great job of stealing possessions, but taking advantage of stealing the possessions because they look for 3-point shooters immediately, and obviously the youngster off the bench. Yeah, he was good. He was good in the first half. He's really good.
All right, Coach. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach.
That's Bill Self post-game. KU falls in AM 74-56. When we come back, we'll take a look at the Oklahoma State Cowboys on the Kansas Lottery Jayhawk Locker Room Show on the Kansas Insurance Jayhawk Sports Network from Learfield. Show as we wrap up. Iowa State over Kansas 74-56. Back-to-back games against top 10 teams, and Kansas goes 1-1. Next week at Oklahoma State, Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, and then Saturday is going to be a high noon tip-off in Fog Allen Fieldhouse against Cincinnati. And after that, well, it's another week against top 10 teams as Houston comes to town for Big Monday on February 23rd, and then KU is at Arizona for that rematch on Saturday, February 28th. Tip-off for that KU-Arizona rematch will be either 3 or 3:30. Oklahoma State, they are 16-9, 4-8 in Big 12 play. They can score a lot of points, but they also give up a lot of points. The Pokes in Big 12 play are third in the conference at scoring, but dead last in scoring defense. Teams score upwards of 83 points against Oklahoma State overall on the season, and in conference play, upwards of 84.6. So how about that? Oklahoma State, they're going to give up some points. Kansas will be able to score. Kansas has had a top-tier defense. KU still top 3 in the conference in both field goal percentage and field goal percentage defense. KU also, in terms of opponent field goal percentage defense from 3, they are in the top half of the conference. Of course, that went down a little bit as Iowa State got really hot in the second half, going 8 of 14 from 3. So Oklahoma State, who lost in overtime today in Stillwater to TCU, 95-92, won't have to travel, and they're on the bubble by many accounts for the NCAA tournament. So they are playing for a lot. Anthony Roy is their leading scorer, averaging nearly 18 points a game. Parsifala, who had 24 points to lead all Cowboys today, he averages 14 points per game. He's a big man. He actually tied the game against TCU at the buzzer with an offensive rebound putback that tied it at 84 before TCU would win 95-92. So a team that's just 4-8 in conference play, but they did so well in the non-con, losing just 1 game and winning 12, that they are firmly on the bubble. Going to be hungry. Always a full house at Gallagher-Iba when KU comes to town. Always a good atmosphere. Important for Kansas to get back to their winning ways, something they do often whenever they've taken a loss, however rare, in the Bill Self era. That's going to do it for our show today. Shout out to Elijah Schmidt, who's running the operations here in the Kansas Nation studio, and the video feed on kansasnation.com and live on Facebook and YouTube. Also want to shout out our producer-engineer, Steve Kincaid, and our studio producer at Learfield, Hayden Burks. For David Lawrence, this is Sean Kellerman reminding you to join us again Wednesday night, 8 o'clock, 6:30 Crimson and Blue Show when the Jayhawks take on the Cowboys in Stillwater. This is the Kansas Insurance Jayhawk Sports Network from Learfield, and for DL, Rock Chalk, Jayhawk.